And let's begin with the word of prayer. What is truth? We know what the truth is. The truth is that our Savior, his kingdom is not of this world. And that we live our lives in faith, looking forward to the kingdom promised by our Father. And so we hold our faith in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, first trial before Pilate. Go ahead and select one.
I have Mark already here.
Mark is there. Any preference?
I'll do Luke again.
Do Luke again? Do Matthew?
I'll take Matthew.
And I'll do John then.
27:11.
Okay, yeah. All right. It's the morning time on Friday, about 6:30 a.m. Standard time, April 7th, 30 A.D. They're at the Antonia Fortress. Pilate had only been in charge for about 4 years. He usually lived in Caesarea on the coast, the Mediterranean coast, but came up to Jerusalem for the major festivals. So he lives way up here, Jerusalem's way down here. So he would literally come up when it's important. Caesarea was a whole lot nicer to live in than Jerusalem much of the year. The Roman pure whatever that is, procurator, whatever, sorry, proctor, what? Curator, there we go. Knew the kind of trouble that could get started in Jerusalem given the wrong circumstances, and it was good practice to be where trouble might begin. And he did not want to live there at all times. Just, no. Any question or thought so far?
Probably didn't want to live there then either, but they pay me for something.
When I was in Jerusalem, I preferred Caesarea as well. It's a nice coastal town. Okay, here we go. The Romans had worked out an arrangement with the Jews of Jerusalem. If a non-Jew entered the temple, then it was okay to kill them in a fit of religious passion. But in other cases where a trial might take place, the Romans had to be informed and give their consent for the death penalty. Hi, we'd like to kill this guy. Can we do that? You got to do it under Roman law then. Okay. Any question? Luke 23, verse 1.
Then the whole company of them arose and brought him before Pilate.
Okay, so he was down with, that would be with the Sanhedrin and Caiaphas. And the whole body, I love these when they use total phrases like this. The whole body got up, and brought him to Pilate. It would have been a real crowd, i.e., some people escorted him there. Okay? Mark 15:1, let's see if there's an addition to this.
And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate.
Okay, so now you see some changes. What do you see?
Let's see.
Specifically that he was constrained.
Correct. He's tied up. Anything else?
Well, the elders, scribes, and the whole council were talking about it, but then, they, who knows?
Okay.
Representatives, anyway.
The power that be. Okay. So you have now specifics. Chief priest, elders and scribes, the whole council has agreed to get rid of him. On average, you're not going to be 100%, but the majority at least decided that. Binding Jesus, they, whoever was in charge of that, led him away, delivered him to Pilate. What else do you see?
Well, it was early morning.
Got it. It's morning, so you can have official trials. Okay? So they're gonna, now that it's morning, a little bit at around 5:30, 6 o'clock, they can take him and deliver him.
And we don't know what they talked about, why they thought he had to go.
Well, yeah, we do, because, as it was said earlier, he's going to rise up to people that's going to rebel, Romans going to down, smash it, take our religious freedoms away, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was the idea. So they were right in their thinking, at least according to their own light.
We also know that there is a history of the Romans coming down hard on any kind of an insurrection, rebellion.
Yeah. Very hard, by our standards anyway. They had a large empire to run, and you have to be really hard-nosed. John 18:28. Let's see if John adds anything to this. It reads, "Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas into the praetorium. And it was early, and they themselves did not enter into the praetorium, so that they would not be defiled and might eat the Passover." So what's been added?
The location, specific location.
The specific location is the praetorium. Good.
And they just must have given him to a guard because they wouldn't go into this unclean building.
What was, someone hadn't scrubbed it? Had the woman been to work yet? Or, the cleaning crew? What do you mean unclean?
Ceremonial unclean, meaning that I don't know in that specific case, but being ceremonial unclean, you touched a dead body or you did this or that, and so you couldn't participate in things until the next day.
They may have had pork on their menu. I mean, you just don't know.
This sausage in the morning, what can you say? No, in this case, it's any Gentile home.
Any Gentile.
Any place where someone who is not kosher, that was the problem. Just the fact of them not being kosher Jew. Okay? I can't go into your house because you're not clean. You're not a Jew. Okay? The praetorium is even worse because it's a fortress. Okay? You have criminals, soldiers there and stuff like that. So that they might still eat the Passover, which will happen later today. Okay, this is later in the day. This is the day of Passover. And we're going to encounter some issues with Passover. Okay? But they're not going to go in, because otherwise they'd have to go on to a 24-hour cycle of cleansing or something.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. The temple guards and the representatives of the Jewish leaders marched Jesus to the fortress Antonia, where Pilate was staying while in Jerusalem. All right. Here they are down at Caiaphas' place. They come up through the streets up here to just above the temple area platform, where there is the fortress of Antonia.
Is that part of the
They cut into the side of the Temple Mount. The Romans did.
Well, yeah, but it said the praetorium, and now we're at Fortress Antonio.
Yes, that's where it was.
Okay.
Okay? The Romans took possession of the prisoner at the gate. They would have marched him up here, and they would have taken possession of him and gone in, but they would not. They would stay outside. The fortress is here, the temple is off to the right. So you see you coming in from the west. Okay? Any question? Thought? John 18:29-32 reads, "Therefore Pilate went out to them and said, 'What accusation do you bring against this man?' They answered and said to him, 'If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him to you.' So Pilate said to them, 'Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law.' The Jews said to him, 'We're not permitted to put anyone to death, to fulfill the words of Jesus which he spoke, signifying by what kind of death he was about to die.'" Okay, what do we got?
Well, to begin with, they're just trying to say he's evil. They haven't told what any of the charges are.
He's a bad guy.
Yeah, and of course, later on, Pilate's gonna say there aren't any.
We'll get to later on in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, but for right now, they just wanted to turn him over and say, he's a bad guy. You take care of it. Right? Any other thought?
Well, besides the fact that, and I hadn't actually realized this before, since they didn't go in, Pilate had to come out to them.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. He met them at the gate, the doorway.
And then the whole purpose of this is, this guy's got to die, you know.
Well, they said
We're
that
not
here.
permitted to put anyone to death.
Right.
That's your job now to find some reason to put him to death.
Exactly. It's up to you. You're the bad, from their perspective, Jewish perspective, you're the bad guy, you kill him. We don't want to take that responsibility.
Yeah,
Or they weren't allowed to,
yeah.
except in the heat of passion.
And it was,
But,
it
you know,
was too late for that. They'd
he's not
arrested
a-
him.
well,
and-
he's not a Gentile either.
Yeah, it's way too late for the passion. Okay, so they know it's got to be a trial, so they bring him to him and say, here's the bad guy. He says, well, what did he do wrong? Oh, he's just a bad guy. Oh, golly. You can start to see how this is going to work. There's going to be some real politicizing going on here. Okay, most people, like when I talk about Pilate, what do you think about Pilate? Tell me what you think about Pilate. What kind of person was he?
Well, so clearly we know he was not a Jew.
He's definitely not a
He
Jew.
made that very clear.
Yeah, he said
And his understanding of Judaism may have been pretty good, we don't know that.
we don't know.
But he is made out in our scriptures to be a bad guy, but he
Yeah.
realistically, multiple times, tried to follow the law and tried to cool things down.
Yes, he did. Very good. But we don't think much of him. You think, oh, he's just a cruel Roman, kind of dumb. He's going to be led around, right? He's not that big a deal. He's just a Roman. Oh, you're about to find out a lot about Pilate. Here we go. So Pilate came out and met with the religious authorities. The authorities tried to lay the whole affair on Pilate, like you said, and the Romans, saying that obviously Jesus was a criminal, or they would not have brought him to Pilate for questioning. Boy, are they trying to lay it off on the Romans. Why? So that the Jews can blame the Romans. And I mean the people. Okay? Anything else? But Pilate refused to blindly accept their word. He's not stupid. If he is a criminal, you judge him according to your law, he said. To which they responded that they'd already judged him and that he should be executed. So then Pilate had Jesus escorted inside. Pilate's still outside with them. He's a politician. Here we go. But the Jews, not wanting to dirty themselves because tonight they wanted to celebrate the Judean Passover, did not enter inside, which would have made them ritually impure. Okay? Pilate, wanting to get some political mileage, publicly asked them what the charges were against Jesus. Misleading people with bad teaching. Pilate clearly saw that the religious leaders were trying to make the Romans look bad, and he decided to turn the tables and make them look bad in front of the people. What kind of charges are these? They won't hold up in a Roman court. Has this man broken any Roman laws? He's not such a dumb guy after all. He's not just a soldier, he's a politician. I love the way he turns it on them. Publicly, he says, this guy's not, what law did he break for a week here? Here we go. The leaders did not want to go this route, but were now forced to begin the journey. They pressed on, having received instruction from Caiaphas. He claims to be the long-awaited Messiah, kind of like a king. Right? Any questions so far? Okay. Pilate's response was, I call dripping, with humorous sarcasm and poisonous barbs. To the politician. Let me get this straight. You are turning over your own king to the Romans for trial? Pilate knew that the story would go out and that zealots and others would never forgive or trust the leaders again. Pilate's pretty smart, isn't he? He turns it on them and says, you're giving me your king? Oh, this is glorious. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, just to say that a king in that time was maybe a little different from the way Americans look at a king.
Good. What's the difference you hear of king when you think of one today?
Well, they're a figurehead, political figurehead with lots of media.
Over a military or a police force with a large territory.
They can be, but some of them aren't. Look at the British, where it's
purely ceremonial.
Yeah. So, but in those days, the king was the ruler, and what he said goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't matter what he said. Whatever he said went.
It was very capricious.
Yeah.
He could be and do whatever he wanted. His kingdom could have different sizes, and he would be vicious and violent in order to protect his authority.
And
Probably.
Probably often a military leader.
Often.
Yeah.
It's easiest to kill off the old one to become the new one. Good. All right, let's see what happens. Pilate's work at the gate was done. He went inside to confront Jesus. Question, thought, or comment? Mark 15, verse 2.
And Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? And he answered him, you have said so.
Okay, what do you have?
Oh, now see, I like that
It
better.
is as you
It
say.
is as you say. That makes more sense.
That's what the proper
Okay,
translation
because every
is.
time he says, you've said so, like,
Like,
why are you being so namby-pamby about it? So that makes more sense.
okay. So Jesus is claiming to be a king.
Yeah,
See, your translation didn't want to say that.
right.
But in reality, he's going to get questioned more anyway about this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Mark 15. Two. Right there. And questioned him Pilate, thou art the king of the Jews? And he answered him, saying, thou sayest. That would be a translation for the Greek.
So you have said so.
Yeah, you said it.
So that one's a little,
That one's
translation's a little
a
stronger.
little wrong. Correct. Jesus is not going to claim to be the king. He's going to let them claim it for him, generally speaking. At least Mark. Let's see what happens in Matthew 27:11.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus said, you say so.
Okay, and again, this is the same translation we're looking at here. You said so. The governor? So Pilate is a governor now. That's fine. It's just a little bit more information that Matthew's added. You are the king of the Jews. Well, let's go on. Luke 23, verses 2 and 3.
And they began to accuse him, saying, we found this man perverting our nation, and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ a king. And Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? And he answered him, you have said so.
Okay, that's good. All right, so now we have what?
Well, this one leaves me with questions,
Good.
because we found this man misleading our nation. Who's talking if they're inside? Clearly, someone had to go inside to accuse him.
Good point. Somebody was in there.
Yeah. And, of course, forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar.
That's just a lie.
Absolutely a lie, because he told him the opposite.
You can't say people lie. That's inappropriate. They were misguided.
Okay.
It was misinformation. Yes, they lied. Okay.
Yeah.
In order to get Caesar to pursue this. Did he claim himself to be the Christ?
I don't think he ever claimed himself to be a king.
Never.
He claimed himself to be the Son of Man.
Correct. And he
Different
allowed
words.
others to see him as the Messiah.
Yes.
Because like when Peter, who do you say I am?
You're a Messiah.
You're Christ, the Son of the living God. And he accepted it, but he didn't go about,
Right.
saying.
So,
he.
they misrepresented him at trial here. This is setting up for a trial here. So, this is a questioning still. It's not an official trial yet. That comes later. So, he's misleading our nation. He's leading us wrong. He's being lied to about Caesar's taxes, and he says he's a king. So, of course, Pilate has to listen to the people who are accusing him. And he turns and looks at Jesus and says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus says, "That's what you say."
Well, clearly Jesus could have defended himself and did not intentionally.
Correct. That is he stood there
And
dumb,
took it.
like a sheep before the slaughter.
That's one of the things I find so hard. I couldn't have done it. No, I didn't do it.
I didn't say that. That's not true.
Let's talk about this.
Yes. Let's go find some witnesses. No. He didn't. He just let it go. Wow. John 18:33-36 reads, "Therefore Pilate entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' Jesus answered," I love John is very creative in his responses here. "Are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate answered, "I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." Is he claiming to be a king?
Yes, but not of this world.
But not of this. Oh, that shouldn't affect Rome, should it?
Shouldn't.
Anything else you see here?
So, with this, your own nation and chief priests delivered you to me, that was a few religious leaders.
It was somewhat of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Yeah. All. I love the exaggerations. Good. And John is very good at doing this kind of thing. Okay? Was John there listening to the trial, to the questioning? Was
Clearly
he
not.
inside? No, he wasn't. Not that we know of. How did anyone know what happened in there? Somebody must have told somebody.
There must have been guards or something.
Or the author John wanted to put certain understandings in place here. Okay? And they're not unwilling to be creative to get the truth put out in place, even if the words were never actually spoken. We have to remember that about the Bible writers, especially John. Okay? Question? Thought? Comment?
Just once again, here we see that John's gospel focuses a lot not on what happened, but who Jesus is.
Correct. And correct. Why and who he is. Exactly. John is very focused on that. When Jesus was brought before him, Pilate went straight to the heart of the charges. Tell me straight. Are you a king? Pilate asked. After a pause, Jesus answered, King is your word. Do I look like a king of the Jews? Would a king look like I look? Kind of sidestepping the question, isn't he? Well, why don't you tell me straight? Here's an answer, but you're not going to like it. Because that's not my point to defend myself. John 18:37-38 reads, Therefore Pilate said to him, So you are a king? Jesus answered, You say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Pilate said to him, What is truth?
So for me, that question is interesting because does he mean what is the truth, or is there any truth?
Are there any at all?
Yeah, we have people today who believe that truth is relative rather than
Truth is whatever I want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't seem reasonable to me, but then I'm kind of locked into the standard procedures there. There has to be ultimate truth somewhere. There's got to be a fact or a truth. So, Pilate's wondering, what is truth? John puts that in for a reason. Okay?
You know, I'm just wondering, the disciples had already celebrated their Passover with Jesus.
Good.
So it's possible that maybe one of them went in.
Could be. Could very well be.
Because they weren't
We're going to
concerned
run
about-
into this problem, and there's never been a solution. The Synoptic Gospels and John put the Passover on different days. 2 different times. And it's a real problem. I've solved it in my way, which you'll find out, which has a Galilean and then a Judean Passover within the 24-hour period. That's my solution to pull them together. I don't know if it's real. I have no idea. But if they've already celebrated their Passover, then John could have come and followed him in. And then we would have an understanding of some of what Jesus was doing there.
Or anyone else from their group.
No, I don't think that's likely. They probably wouldn't have focused on this, on the psychological part, or the why, or the who. They would be focusing on what, as you keep saying.
Yeah, but the point is, if you have and let's just say, for example, someone typed this as it was being said, so you have the exact words.
Okay.
For example,
Right.
okay? So we know that didn't happen, but if it did, if someone were there and came back and reported, whether it was John or Peter or whoever it was,
Right.
if they all heard the same words, they're not going to report it the same way.
No. They're going to put their own spin on it, or their
Yeah.
own remembrance, or their own interpretation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So, what is truth? The truth is, he is the king, but his kingdom is not of this world. He said it.
But that could have been a rhetorical question as well.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is truth? Truth is whatever I, as a Roman, want to interpret it as. Luke 23, 4-5.
And Pilate said to the chief of priests and the multitudes, I find no crime in this man. But they were urgent, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee even to this place.
Okay. So, what do you see? What's been added here?
Well, it almost sounds as though they're not inside at all, but they're still out there at the gate because they're still having all of this input from other
Right,
people.
other people.
But
And
he could have come in and out a few times and us not know as
Or
well.
it could have been through an open doorway they could hear from out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But you're right. It's confusing.
Mhm.
Okay? Either way, somebody was in there, whether it's a chief priest or crowd or whomever. he tells them, maybe he comes out to the crowd and says, I find no guilt in the man. That makes sense. He comes out and says so. But they insist in saying, well, he stirs up the people. And now here's the important part now. Teaching all over Judea, that's where we're sitting here, starting from Galilee, even as far as this place. So, he's been teaching all over the area. Way north of here, too. This is the first time Pilate's been informed of that. He hadn't considered it. Go ahead. No?
Well, we're gonna know that Pilate has heard of Jesus and he wanted to hear of him.
No, we don't know that about Pilate. We'll find that about another person.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
You're
Herod.
right. You're
Okay,
right.
that's okay. That's why we're walking through it slowly. Pilate, this is his newbie. This is something that he didn't know about before. And he's being told right now about this person in this place. And all of a sudden he hears, wait a minute, he started up north. Oh, he's been going for some time? Yeah, he's been doing this for a couple of years now. Oh!
And all the way down.
And yeah, from there to here. Here we go. Pilate responded, how would I know? I'm not a Jew. Then Pilate went through the list of charges, asking Jesus to respond to each one. My assumption. But Jesus remained calm and said nothing throughout the proceedings, as Isaiah 53:7 indicates, as though he were dealing with foolish children's questions rather than the powerful Romans. I'm not even going to deign to answer you. I'm hardly even listening to you. And by the end of the first round of questions, Pilate was getting a queasy feeling about Jesus, as would anybody. When you're posing questions that are life and death, and the person won't even talk to you, that's going to make you uneasy.
Well, and they have brought charges that are not.
Not specific.
Not certainly not equal to their request for punishment.
Correct. This is making a lot of sense. He knows he's being manipulated. We know he knows that. And he's trying to understand it. Okay? But Jesus is making him nervous. A prisoner is making him nervous. My opinion.
Most people would be saying whatever they could to weasel out of it.
Correct. I have the power of life and death. You got nothing. Which is what he'll say later. Okay? Pilate felt that he knew Jesus well enough now so as not to believe that Jesus was a terrorist or a revolutionary. That's the point. That's what he's being accused of. A terrorist or a revolutionary. Okay? And Pilate's going, that just isn't right. It doesn't fit. Question, thought, or comment? John 18:39 reads, when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no guilt in him. Yet Pilate was determined to use the situation to his advantage, as any shrewd politician would. They'll come out and make a public statement that they want to make. We see much of this happening even in our own society. Well,
Ask the buck.
where they will come out and say what their interpretation is, whether it's true or not.
What they want you to hear, at least.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay? The idea crossed his mind to play the crowd against the religious leaders. The religious leaders expected him to announce a finding of guilt, and the people expected Roman injustice to come to the same conclusion. Good news for the religious leaders, bad news for the people. So when Pilate announced that he found no crime in Jesus, the religious leaders panicked, and the people took hope. Thought? Do you understand it?
Well, so clearly they're going to try to work the crowd.
Clearly, he's going to try to work the crowd, as are the religious leaders.
Yeah.
Good.
And the religious leaders ultimately are going to prevail.
We know that because they did.
Yeah. But at this point, you can still see that he's having a real difficult time with what the Jews want.
Yes, he is. He knows he's being manipulated. He's going to turn the table on him, sort of. So he goes out and he says, I don't find anything guilty here. He's just not there. And that freaks him out because the religious leaders have committed themselves turning over their king to the Romans to be killed. They have no choice. They have to follow through now. He's manipulated them into that kind of position. The people, on the other hand, would be happy to have a new king to drive out the Romans. So it's a contradiction of hope and desire. One hopes, the other loses hope. One loses hope, the other one gains hope. It's very difficult.
We also have to recognize that the religious leaders, even though they were religious leaders and in theory independent, they were actually all under the thumb of the Romans.
Yes, they are in a difficult
And they were
position.
afraid of the Romans.
Absolutely. That's why Caiaphas and Annas decided he had to die.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of the Romans. Absolutely. Good. So, you see the contradictions happening here. This is confusing time. Okay? But the Jewish leaders are now set on a course. They must follow through. And now the doggone Roman has let them down and says he's found not guilty. Oh, we have to change that. Here we go. Religious leaders regrouped and again demanded the Romans find Jesus guilty and condemn him to death. He thinks he is a king and he is stirring up trouble in Judea just as he had in Galilee, they argued. Here was a bit of new information. This could be useful, thought Pilate, and had Jesus brought back in. So he'd taken Jesus out, told him that he's not guilty. They said, no, he's been stirring up trouble. He thinks he's a king. Oh, okay, I'll take him back in and question him again. Question? Comment? Confusion? Okay. What is this new piece of information?
Well, the fact that he was in northern part of the region.
Correct. He was up in Galilee. It's not just the northern part of a region. He's in a whole different country, essentially.
Right, but
Okay.
it was under control of
Herod.
still of
Yes.
Herod, yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right, here we go. Next time, Antipas will question Jesus.